It was a big weekend for Jiu-Jitsu. Just how big? Well, the Craig Jones Invitational said that they hit 3.14 million viewers between their 2 days. We saw the ADCC actually went on air and hit somewhere in the region of about 270K, which not nothing for their first round that they aired for free on YouTube. Nonetheless, the Craig Jones numbers got me thinking, and I started trying to figure out, where does that stand? And specifically, that Saturday night was also a night where they were airing against the UFC. But let's take a look at how the Craig Jones Invitational did on Friday night in terms of the ratings. And yes, some of this is apples to oranges sort of situation, but let's take the larger conversation here. On Friday night, Craig Jones Invitational, based purely on number of viewers, would have done enough to rank within the top 10 programs on television. Now, when I say apples to oranges here as a big ratings nerd, I know it's not the same. I know that YouTube compiles their views in a different way that Nielsen does. Normally for Nielsen, you have to watch pretty much a majority of the program, where YouTube, you only have to watch 30 seconds to be considered a view. But stay with me on this conversation. Still, hitting 1.86 million viewers on night number 1 is an incredible feat. And more importantly, this doesn't even go into the 18 to 49 demographic. Sure, viewers by and large is a really good thing, but networks sell off of the 18 to 49 demographic. I did reach out to Craig to see if he had a number that he could supply to us, because I don't have those analytics, and I believe he's in the middle of a Coke binge. So if we get any updated numbers, we will do our best to update them here. But take a look at this chart, and it's significant for a couple reasons. Number one, it outperformed a repeat of Ninja Warrior, an established property within NBC Universal. Not bad. It also outdid AEW Rampage. Now, AEW is about to go through a big contract renegotiation. It is estimated that AEW per year is paid $45 to $50 million a year for their weekly programming, and it outdrew that. Now, granted, Friday night, they have a later time slot, and yes, Craig Jones had the benefit of being on for longer, so that means that it's not quite comparable to maybe a 30-minute program here, but it does suggest that things did very well for their Friday night. But you got to wonder, how did they do on Saturday when there was a UFC that actually happened on that same night? And I got news for you, just as well, if not more significantly better, because that night also had preseason games. The NFL had, of course, major viewing at 2.07 million viewers checking out the Lions versus Chiefs game. So maybe we weren't going to beat them in that segment. But if you look down here, the Craig Jones Invitational at hitting 1.33 million viewers on night number 2 for a shorter program does seem a little bit significant in that it beat the millions of viewers who were coming in for the Bears and Bengals, 2 long-established franchises. And I got to tell you, what's even more significant, if you look at that number and go down to number 14, that is the UFC 305 prelims. And if you know the UFC, you know they have a multi-billion-dollar contract. Now, you might say to yourself, oh, maybe it was a weak card. Maybe the prelims weren't as big. You get a lot of people who tell you that people will not tune in for jiu-jitsu. This weekend is the beginning of saying, yes, I think people were interested. And I'm willing to take a wager here to see if we get their 18 to 49 numbers. We'd be happy to put those into the same charts that we have here. Because again, not only did it beat the UFC, it beat AEW, which again, may be looking at $100 million a year contract coming back up in their renewals. But that is incredibly impressive that night. So I want to give it to them and give them their due props, because that is an impressive feat nonetheless. Now, granted, these are estimated viewers. I'm sure you can find the real thing somewhere else, and maybe they might be a little bit wrong, but it's a pretty good starting point in terms of a conversation. And I want to point this out. Initially, it was said that, I believe Gordon, that ADCC was the most successful it's ever been. That sounds good, but in terms of TV, these numbers matter more significantly than anything ADCC did. yes, ADCC put on a show, but this could actually get us a distribution deal if they know how to market it right. And it looks like they have some good people behind the scenes, and perhaps it is worthy of exploration on how well we do to that widely coveted 18 to 49 demographic. So the next time one of your friends tells you that jiu-jitsu will not play on network television or cable at the very least, tell them that they outperformed those that have multi-million-dollar contracts. And yes, in terms of the UFC, multi-billion-dollar. And I think that is worth noting. So congratulations to the Craig Jones Invitational for advancing that a little bit further. You can justify your numbers any way you want to, and it's not the end of the story, but it does paint a pretty good picture. And I was so encouraged to see that we could be a top 10 program for new programming. So if you look at cable and you look at how other things rated, we are missing some information. I'm willing to admit that, but I thought we put together a pretty good sample of how it drew that evening. And I'm very, very proud of our sport that we could do it. And I do feel like ADCC still took some upside, but until they release numbers, the only numbers of note that we have are how their gate sold, which looked like it did well, and how they drew in that first round, which 232 is nothing to scoff at, but it's also not the thing that's going to get the sponsorships that they think that they're going to get in terms of TV in a way that is more accessible to the regular everyday person. I do want to point out one last thing here, and you guys can tell me if you think this is relevant or not. Oh my God, those were our numbers. Look at that. That's really cool. Did you guys know that we did a broadcast over the weekend, and that, yes, it is pretty dope that Craig Jones Invitational did exceptionally well. Now, I'm willing to bet the ADCC did pretty well as well, but we didn't do so bad. Yes, we broadcasted for 26 hours, but right here, it shows you a chart that says that we got over, and this is a rough estimation, I will look at it in the future, but we got over 400,000 minutes that were viewed. Now, YouTube does technically count things, a view, as 30 seconds. So I don't know enough to know exactly what these numbers mean. I don't know if it means we had a high amount of people who sought us out, or if it meant that the people who were with us stayed with us a long time. I'm willing to accept maybe the latter is closer to true. We're still figuring it out. But I can tell you this much. There is one thing that I have told people who watch our show over the years, and it's been based off of guesstimations. Me thinking that maybe Flow Grappling has 100,000 people who tune in because I could give notes or evidence that supplied the idea that we here at the show draw at a 1 out of 10 households that watch jiu-jitsu, meaning we have a 10% market share. And I think from this weekend, you can kind of see that I'm not off my mark. So without knowing a ton, even this weekend, if the Craig Jones Invitational drew 3.14 million people in, and we got at minimum at least 400K plus, and that doesn't include everywhere we stream to, I'm not wrong when I say that we hit 1 in 10 audiences that tune in for that 10% market share. Why is this significant? Well, if you sponsored with us, I think it's a pretty good return on investment. And we did that off of the shoestringingest of shoestring budgets. But what I think it does tell you is if you look at other comparable chat shows that are on ESPN, not only is the sport building, but I think it gives more evidence that you guys, the audience, want to see shows that talk about jiu-jitsu. And hopefully it is ours. And we definitely put in the work here weekly, and it's a testament to our crew and the work that they did and these two co-hosts. So I'm very proud of the work that we did. And I think it bodes well to say we went to Vegas uncredentialed on a prayer looking for something good here. And I think our team overperformed. So, we can have our nice little Ewoks celebration afterwards where we're just throwing things around and putting things on fire. But to our team, congratulations and thank you for an excellent week of work. I'm truly proud of this, and it definitely warmed my heart. So it was definitely something super cool to see, and I hope that you guys like the shows.